Joining us on the line now is Stuart Varney. He's the anchor of Varney and Company on the Fox Business Network, an all-round decent guy. Just to bring things full circle, we want to know, Stuart, we were talking earlier about the death of the Saturday morning cartoons. Did they have that in Great Britain where you grew up?
Good one, Brian.
No, I'm serious. Did they have cartoons Saturday morning?
That's a good start. Yes, actually, in my day, no. They only had one channel. It was black and white. It was the BBC, and cartoons were unknown on a Saturday morning.
Wow.
However, by the time I was a teenager, I would sit with my dad and watch. You ever remember a character called Foghorn Leghorn?
We were just talking about it.
Okay, well, that's what I was watching with my dad circa 1962. Okay?
All right, well, good.
I say, pay attention, boy.
Yeah, that's it.
This is why you like Brian Wilson so much.
Yeah, because James Rosen believes
resemblance.
that I sound a lot like Foghorn Leghorn when I get excited. So
you know that James Rosen is the ultimate Beatles fan?
I know he is.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
He's a longtime friend of this show. Okay, we do have things of importance to talk about. Let me make this uncomfortable transition. Yesterday, the market was in the toilet. And some people drew the conclusion that the market was in the toilet because of what was going on with the Ebola story. Is there any connection? Is that a fair thing to draw a connection between those two? Are people so concerned about this, or are there market ramifications to the Ebola scare?
It's part of the story.
Okay.
The expression that was doing the rounds yesterday during this big market sell-off was Black Swan. Now, a Black Swan event is something that pops up out of nowhere, totally unexpected, but has a profound impact on society.
Okay.
A Black Swan event is something like Ebola. If it were to arrive here and spread here, that would have significant impact on our society and our market. Hong Kong could be considered a Black Swan event.
Yeah.
Nobody saw this thing coming.
The democracy protest there, right.
So you wrap it all together, and you've got this very high anxiety level, state of the economy, performance of government, Ebola, Hong Kong, you name it, it's high anxiety time. You wrap it all together, and you've got a whopping great big stock market decline. Very anxious times we live in, Brian.
Well, and Stuart, the Ebola thing, you're talking about just sort of the perception and the feeling that it might give people, and that'll make them skittish. But there's some real-world consequences. I'm thinking about the airline industry in particular. I fly 2 or 3 times a month, and that's, you don't know where that plane has been. You don't know where your flight attendants have been.
You don't know who sat in that seat before you.
Is this really going to hurt that business?
Yeah, it would. People do not trust the medical authorities. When they say, if you sit next to a guy who later comes down with Ebola, you cannot get Ebola. A lot of people don't believe that, don't trust that, are not prepared to trust that. So in the event of a larger outbreak inside the United States, you would have a lot of people who would refuse to fly because they don't want to sit next to somebody who might give them Ebola.
Yeah.
It's high anxiety. That's what it is. Maybe it is irrational fear, but it's fear nonetheless.
I'm going to see what you think about this. I'm going to draw this argument. I think that there is a general sense that the government as a whole is not telling us the truth. It starts with things like, there's an intruder at the White House. We got him at the door. Oh, well, no, we got him at the East Room. Oh, well, and there was a thing in the elevator. And when things come out in dribs and drabs, and on little things like that.
Right.
Not to mention things like we don't particularly think we got all the information about Benghazi or Fast and Furious or the IRS scandal. Take those things and put them aside. When we have these moments where government does not, quite tell us the truth, it destroys our confidence that we're getting the truth at times like this.
About Ebola.
When the government is economical with the truth, to coin a phrase, you start to get worried that they're not telling you the truth, they're lying. I think this is all wrapped up into what we're going through now, which is a crisis of confidence in the government. The government so often cannot get the job done. And this president is an all-government, all-the-time kind of guy, and I think he's got to take some responsibility for the very, very poor performance of the executive branch. Look at what we've got. They've got the Secret Service. What a mess. Veterans Administration. What a mess. IRS. A mess. Obamacare. Awful. Late rollout, late arrival to fight ISIS. What a mess. the performance of the government just isn't where it ought to be. And I don't think it ever will be, quite frankly. I don't think government bureaucracies are designed to be efficient or dynamic in any way, shape, or form. I think we're getting what we should have expected to get. But it's all wrapped up into this general raising of the anxiety level because we don't trust the performance of government, and we see it failing.
Stuart, Varney, I hear you and your panel there on Varney and Company talk a lot about the debt, the federal debt, and the Fed's policy of printing money and just sort of, covering up the issue with the debt with more money, more money. Our states don't have that luxury. The states can't print money. And right down here in the District of Columbia, Maryland, we have this governor, Martin O'Malley. He wants to be president. And just yesterday, we spoke with the comptroller of the state, who they are now writing off a huge amount of debt. They're taking a huge debt load now on the state of Maryland to cover up the fact that tax revenues are down and they're spending like there's no tomorrow because it's one-party rule here in Maryland. And he said this. Listen to this.
I'm estimating that we would have to raise the state property tax by 67% to pay for the debt payments that we owe over the next 5 years.
Stuart, is there a ticking time bomb right now in various states around the country where the chickens are coming home to roost?
Yes, flat out there is, yes. Spending in many states is totally out of control, and revenues are down, which means massive debt, which they cannot do anything about in the short run except raise taxes, which is ridiculous when you think about it. You can't possibly have a 67% rise in property taxes over a 5-year period.
Right.
That is going to really break Maryland.
And if you look at the various states right now, I think I've seen a breakdown that if you take Texas's economy out of the equation in America, we've had a horrible 6 years.
Yeah, look, if you look at successful states in America, low deficit, low debt, high tax revenue, strong growth, those are the states which have small government, low taxes, and less burdensome regulation.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of other states which have gone the opposite way. Lots of government, lots of taxation, lots of regulation, and it's not working. They've got high debt, which they cannot pay. It is a ticking time bomb.
All right. Well, Stuart Varney, we're going to leave it right there. It is always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Talk to you